The Railroad Earth, Chapter 3, Part 4. San Jose. Because the soul of the railroad is the chain gang run, the long freight train you see snaking down the track with a puff-puff engine pulling is the traveler, the winner, the arterial, moody mainline maker of the rail. San Jose is 50 miles south of Frisco and is the center of the Coast Division chain gang or long road run activity, known as the Horn because the pivot point for rails going down from Frisco towards Santa Barbara and LA, and rails going and shining back to Oakland via Newark and Niles on sublines that also cross the mighty main line of the Fresno-bound Valley Division. San Jose is where I should have been living instead of 3rd Street, Frisco, for these reasons. 4 o'clock in the morning in San Jose comes a call on the phone. Is the dispatcher calling from 4th and Townsend in the sad Frisco. Caraway! It's Deadhead on 112 to San Jose for a drag east with conductor Degnan. Got that? Yeah, Deadhead 112, drag east, right. Meaning, go back to bed and rise again around 9. You're being paid all this time, and boy, you don't worry about a drug and do damn thing. At 9, all you gotta do is get up. And you already done made how many dollars? Anyways, in your sleep, and put on your gig clothes and cut out and take a little bus and go down to the San Jose yard office down by the airport there. And in the yard office are hundreds of interested railroad men and tackings of tickers and telegraph, and the engines are being lined up and numbered and markered out there. And new engines keep rushing up from the roundhouse. And everywhere in the gray air, tremendous excitements of movement, of rolling rocks, stocks, and the making of great wages. You go down there, find your conductor who will be some old baggy pants circus comedian with a turned up hat brim and red face and red handkerchief and grimy waybills and switch lists in his hand, and far from carrying a student big brakeman lantern like you's got, his little old 10-year-old tiny lantern from some old boomer bought, and the batteries of which he has to keep buying at Davigus instead of like the student getting free at the yard office, because after 20 years on the RR you gotta find some way to be different and also to lighten the burdens you carry around with yourself. He's there, leading by spittoons with others. You go up, hat over eyes, say, "Conductor Degnan?" "I'm Degnan." "Well, it doesn't look like anything before noon, so just take it easy and be around." So you go into the blue room, they call it, where blue flies buzz and hum around old, awful, dirty couch tops stretched on benches with the stuffing coming out and attracting and probably breeding further flies. And there you lie down if it ain't already full of sleeping brakemen, and you turn your shoe tops up to the dirty old brown, sad ceiling of time there, haunted by the clack of telegraphs and the chug of engines outdoors enough to make you go in your pants, and turns your hat brim over your eyes and go ahead and sleep. Since 4 in the morning, since 6 in the morning, when still the sleep was on your eyes, in that dark dream house you've been getting $1.90 per hour, and it is now 10 a.m. and the train ain't even made up, and not before noon, says Degnan, so that by noon you'll already have been working, because counting from time of 1:12, deadhead time, 6 hours, and so you'll leave San Jose with your train around noon or maybe further at 1 and not get to the terminal grain chain gang town of Watsonville where everything's going LA ward till 3 in the afternoon, and with happy mishaps 4 or 5 nightfall, when down there waiting for the herders sighing enginemen and trainmen see the long red sad sun of waning day falling on the lovely old landmark milepost 98.2 farm, and day's done, runs done, they've been being paid since down dawn of that day and only traveled about 50 miles. This will be so sleep in the bloom room dream of $1.90 per hour, and also of your dead father and your dead love and the moldering in your bones and the eventual fall of you. The train won't be made up till noon, and no one wants to bother you till, lucky child and railroad angel, softly in your steel propositioned sleep. So much more to San Jose. So if you live in San Jose, you have the advantage of 3 hours of extra sleep and not at home, not counting the further sleep on the blue room wrought puff leather couch. Nevertheless, I was using the 50-mile ride from 3rd Street as my library, bringing books and papers in a little tattered black bag already 10 years old, which I'd originally bought on a pristine morning in Lowell in 1942 to go to sea with, arriving in Greenland that summer. And so a bag so bad, a brakeman seeing me with it in the San Jose Yard coffee shop said, whooping loud, a railroad loot bag if I ever saw one. And I didn't even smile or acknowledge, and that was the beginning, middle, and extent of my social rapport on the railroad with the good old boys who worked it, thereafter becoming known as Caraway, the Indian with the phony name. And every time we went by the Pomo Indians working section hand tracks, Gandhi dancers with greasy black hair, I waved and smiled and was the only man on the SP who did so, except old hogheads always do wave and smile, and section hand bosses who are old white bespectacled, respectable old toppers and topers of time, and everybody respects. But the dark Indian and the Eastern Negro, with sledgehammers and dirty pants, to them I waved, and shortly thereafter I read a book and found out that the Pomo Indian battle cry is "Ya ya hena," which I thought once of yelling as the engine crash boomed by. But what would I be starting but derailments of my own self and engineer? All the railroad opening up and vaster until finally, when I did quit it a year later, I saw it again, but now over the waves of the sea, the entire coast division winding down along the dun walls of bleak headland Balboa Maracay from a ship. And so the railroad opens up on the waves that are Chinese and on the orient shrouded sea. It runs ragged to the plateau, clouds and Pucallpas and lost Andean heights far below the world rim. It also bores a deep hole in the mind of man and freights a lot of interesting cargo in and out of the hole's precipitate and otherwise hiding places, an imitative cauchemar of eternity, as you'll see. So one morning they called me at 3rd Street about 4 a.m. and I took the early morning train to San Jose, arriving there 7:30. Was told not to worry about anything till about 10, so I went out in my inconceivably bum's existence, went looking for pieces of wire that I could bend in such a way over my hot plate so they would support little raisin breads to make toast, and also looking, if possible, for better than that, a chicken wire arrangement on which I could sit pots or heat water in pans to fry eggs, since the hot plate was so powerful it often burned and black caked the bottom of my eggs if by chance I'd overlooked the possibility while being busy peeling my potatoes or otherwise involved. I'd walk around San Jose, had a junkyard across the track. I went in there and looked around. Stuff in there so useless the proprietor never came out. I, who was earning $600 a month, made off with a piece of chicken wire for my hot plate. Here it was, 11, and still no train made up. Gray, gloomy, wonderful day. I wandered down the little street of cottages to the big boulevard of San Jose and had carnation ice cream and coffee in the morning. Whole bevies and classrooms of girls came in with tight-fitting and sluice-sucking sweaters and everything on earth on. It was some academy of dames suddenly come to gossip coffee, and I was there in my baseball hat, black, slick, oiled, and rusted weather jacket with fur collar that I had used to lean my head on in the sands of Watsonville River bottoms and grits of Sunnyvale across from Westinghouse near Shuckles' student days, ground where my first great moment of the railroad had taken place, over by Del Monte's. When I kicked my first car and Whitney said, "You're the boss, do it, pull the pin with the will, put your hand in there and pull, 'cause you're the boss." And it was October night, dark, clean, clear, dry, piles of leaves by the track in the sweet-scented dark, and beyond them crates of the Del Monte fruit, and workers going around in crate wagons with under-reaching stuckers, and never will forget Whitey saying that. by same reminiscence of doubt, in spite and because of. Wanted to save all me money for Mexico. I also refused to spend 75 cents or even 35 cents less for a pair of work gloves. Instead, after initial losing of my first bought work glove while setting out that sweet San Mateo flower car on Sunday morning with the Sherman local, I resolved to get all my other gloves from the ground, and so went for weeks with my black hand clutching sticky cold iron of engines in the dewy cold night, till I finally found the first glove outside the San Jose yard office, a brown cloth glove with red Mephistophelian lining. Picking it up limp and damp from the ground, and smashed it on my knee and let it dry and wore it. Final leather glove found outside Watsonville yard office. A little leather imitation outside glove with inside warm lining, and cut with scissors or razors at the wrist to facilitate putting it on and obviate ranking and yunking. These were my gloves. I'd lost, as I say, my first glove in San Mateo, the second with conductor Degnan, while waiting for the all-clear signal from the pot, working rear because of his fear. By the track at Lick, the long curve, the traffic on 101 making it difficult to hear. And in fact, it was the old conductor who in the dark of that Saturday night did finally hear. I heard nothing. I ran to the caboose as it leapt ahead with the slack and got on counting my red lamps, gloves, fusees, and whatnots, and realizing with horror as the train pulled along I had dropped one of my gloves at Lick. Damn! Now I had 2 new gloves from off the ground pickied. At noon of that day, the engine still wasn't on. The old hoghead hadn't left home yet, where he'd pick up his kid on a sunny sidewalk with open arms and kissed him the late Red John time of afternoon before. So I was there sleeping on the horrible couch when, by God, in some way or other, and after I'd gone out several times to check and climb around the pot, which was now tied on, and the conductor and rear man having coffee in the shop, and even the fireman, and then I went back for further musings or nappings on the seat cover, expecting them to call me, when in my dreams I hear a double toot toot and hear a great anxiety engine taking off, and it's my engine, but I don't realize it right away. I think it's some slomming, woeful old black track pot whack cracking along in a dream or dream reality, when I suddenly wake up to the fact they didn't know I was sleeping in the blue room, and they got their orders and gave the highball. And there they go to Watsonville, leaving the head man behind. As tradition goes, fireman and engineer, if they don't see the head man on the engine and they've gotten the sign, off they go. They have nothing to do with these sleepy train men. I leap up, grab lamp, and in the dark, in the gray day, and running precisely over the spot where I'd found that brown glove with red lining, and thinking of it in the fury of my worry, and as I dash, I see the engine way down the line, 50 years picking up and foofing, and the whole train's rumbling after, and cars waiting at the crossing for the event. It's my train! Off I go, lopping and running fast over the glove place and over the road and over the corner of the junk field where I'd searched for tin also that lazy morning. Amazed, mouth gaped, railroad man, about 5 of them, are watching this crazy student running after his engine as it leaves for Watsonville. Is he going to make it? Inside 30 seconds, I was abreast with the iron ladder and shifting lantern to other hand to grab hold of and get on and climb. And anyway, the whole shebang, we stopped again at a red light, at a red to allow old, I think, 71 get through the station yards. It was, I think, by now almost 3 o'clock. I'd slept and earned or started to earn incredible overtimes, and this nightmare transpiring. So they got the red and stopped anyway, and I had my train made and sat on the sandbox to catch my breath. No comment whatever in the world on the bleak jawbones and cold blue oaky eyes of that engineer and fireman. They must have been holding some protocol with the iron railroad in their hearts, for all they cared about this soft-headed kid who'd run down the cinders to his late lost work. Forgive me, O Lord. At the rickety fence-back Del Monte Fruit Packing Company, which is directly across the track from the San Jose passenger station, There's a curve in the track, a curve schmurv of eternity rememberable from the dream of the railroad dark I had where I'm working unspeakable locals with Indians, and suddenly we come upon a great Indian caucus in an underground subterraneana somewhere right there in the vicinity of the Del Monte curve, where Indians work anyway, packing the crates, the cans, the fruit in cans with syrup. And I'm watching with the heroes of the Portuguese bars of San Francisco, watching dances and hearing revolutionary speeches like the speeches of the revolutionary sawed squat down heroes of Culiacan, where by the bark of the wave in the dreary light drolling night I've heard them say, La tierra está la nostra, and knew they mean it. And for this reason, the dream of the Indians' revolutionary meeting and celebrating in the bottom-lip cellar of the railroad earth. The train goes around the curve there, and gently I lean out of the grab iron darks and look, and there's our little clearance and train order sitting in a piece of string which is stretched between the two train order rods. As the train passes, the train man simply, usually the fireman, reaches out with whole arms so to make sure not to miss, and hooks the string in passing, the string being taut, and off comes the string, and the two bows, which are rigid, sort of ping a little, and this in your arm is looped the train orders on yellow onion skin tied by string. The engineer, upon receipt of this freight, takes the string and slowly, according to years of personal habit in the matter of undoing train order strings, undoes the string, and then, according again to habit, unfolds the paper to read, and sometimes they even put glasses on like great professors of Ivy universities, to read as that big engine goes chugging across and down the green land of California, and Mexicans of railside Mex shacks, standing with eyes shaded, watching us pass, see the great bespectacled monk student and engineer of the night peering learnedly at his little slip in the big grimy paw, and it reads, date October 3rd, 1952. Train orders to train 29222, issued 2:04 p.m. Wait at Rucker till 3:58 for eastbound 914. Do not go beyond Corporal till 4:08, and etc. All the various orders which the train order dispatchers and various thinking officials at switch towers and telephones are thinking up in the great metaphysical passage of iron traffics of the rail. We all take turns reading, like they say to young students, read it carefully, don't leave it up to us to decide if there are any mistake. Many's at the time a student found a mistake that the engineer and fireman out of years of habit didn't see, so read it carefully. So I go over the whole thing, reading even over and over again, checking the dates, the time, like the time of the order should certainly be not later than time of departure from station. When I went loping over the junk field with lantern and loot bag, racing to catch my guilt laid in the gray candy gloom, and but all of it sweet. The little curve at Del Monte, the train orders, then the train goes on to milepost 49.1 to the Western Pacific RR crossing, where you always see the track goes directly vertically across this alien track, so there is a definite hump in the rail bed. But chuck-a-luck, as we go over, sometimes at dawn returning from Watsonville, I'd be dozing in the engine and wondering just about where we were, not knowing generally we were in the vicinity of San Jose or Lick, and I'd hear the Brock of Brock and say to myself, the Western Pacific crossing. And remember how one time a brakie said to me, can't sleep nights in this here new house I got here out on Santa Clara Avenue for the clatter and racket of that damn engine out there in the midnight. Why, I thought you loved the railroad. Well, to tell you the fact of the matter is the Western Pacific happens to have a rail running out there, and with such as though it was inconceivable that there could be other railroads than the Southern Pacific. Or we go across the crossing, and there we go along the stream, the Occonee of Old Jose, the little blank Guadalupe River dry, and with Indians standing on the banks, that is Mexican children watching the train, and great fields of prickly pear cactus, and all green, and sweet in the gray afternoon, and gonna be golden brown, and rich when the sun at 5 flames flares to throw the California wine over the rear western licks into the Pacific brine. On we go to Lick, always. I take my looks at favorite landmarks, some schools where boys are practicing football in varsity and sub-varsity, and freshmen and sub-freshman squads, 4 of them, under tutelage of raven priests with piping glad voices in the wind. For it's October of footing ball evening, heavening, rooting, root to you. Then at Lick there is on a hill a kind of monastery. You barely see the dreaming marijuana walls of it as you pass up there, with the bird wheeling to peace. There afield cloisters work, cloisterous prayers in every form known to man of sweet meditating going on as we wrangle and back giggle by with a bursting engine and long knocking space taking up half-mile long fray. Any minute I expect a hot box in as I look back anxiously, fit to work. The dreams of monastery man up there on the hill at Lick, and I think, creamy walls of either Rome civilizations, or the last monasterial meditation with God in the did do KKG. God knows what I'm thinking. And then, and my thoughts rapidly change as 101 rears into sight, and Coyote, and the beginning of the sweet fruit fields and prune orchards, and the great strawberry fields, and the vast fields where you see far off the humble squatting figures of Mexican braceros in the great haze, working to pluck from the earth that which the America with his vast iron wages no longer thinks feasible as an activity, yet eats, yet goes on eating, and the brass backs with arms of iron eats, yet Mexico, iron Mexico and Cactus Plateau love, they'll do it for us. The railroad freight train and concomitant racks of beets is not even. The men on it are not even mindful of how those beets are in what mood, sweetness were picked and laid to rest out of the earth in the steely cradle. I see them, their bent, humble backs, remembering my own cotton-picking days in Selma, California, and I see far off across the grapevines the hills to the west, then the sea, the great sweet hills, and further along you begin to see the familiar hills of Morgan Hill. We pass the fields of Perry and Madrone, and where they make wine, and it's all there, all sweet, the furrows of brown, the blossoms. And one time we took a sighting to wait for 98, and I ran out there like the hound of the Baskervilles and got me a few old prunes no longer fitting to eat. The proprietor, seeing me, train man, running guiltily back to engine with a stolen prune. Always I was running, always was running, running to throw switches, running in my sleep, and running now, happy. The sweetness of the fields unspeakable, the names themselves bloody edible, like Lick, Coyote, Perry, Madrone, Morgan Hill, San Martin, Rucker, Gilroy, Old Sleepy, Gilroy, Cavanadero, Corporal, Sergeant, Chittenden, Logan, Aromas, and Watsonville Junction with the Pajaro River passing through it. And we of the railroad pass over its wooden dry Indian draws that's somewhere outside Chittenden, where one morning all dew pink I saw little birds sitting on a piece of stanchion, straight up wood in the wild tangle. And it was the bird of Chittenden, and the meaning of morning. Sweet enough the fields outside San Jose, like at St. Lawrence and Sunnyvale, and where they have fast harvests and fields with the bent back sat Mexicano laboring in his primavera. But once past San Jose, somehow the whole California opens even further. At sunset at Perry or Madrone, it is like a dream. You see the little rickety farmhouse, the fields, the rows of green planted fruit, and beyond the green pale mist of hills, and over that the red orioles of Pacific sunfall, and in the silence the bark of a dog, and the fine California night dew already rising, arid moss done wiped the Hamburg juice off the frying pan, and later on tonight beautiful little Carmelita, oh Jose, will be gomicing along the road with her brown breasts inside cashmere sweater bouncing ever so slightly, even with maiden form bra, and her brown feet in thongs, sandals also brown, and her dark eyes with pools in them, you wonder what mad meaning, and her arms like arms of handmaidens in the Plutonian Bible, and ladles for her arms in the form of trees with juice. Take a peach, take the fulsome orange, Bit a hole in it. Take the orange, throw your head back, use all your strength and drink and squeeze out the orange through the hole. All the juices runs down your lip and on her arms. She has dust on her toes and toenail polish. She has a tiny brown waist, a little soft chin, soft neck like swan, little voice, little femininity and doesn't know it. Her little voice is little tinkled. Along comes the tired field hand Jose Camero, and he sees her in the vast sun red in the fruit field moving Queen Majesty to the well, the tower. He runs for her. The railroad crashes by. He pays no attention standing on the engine student brakeman J.L. Kerouac, and old hoghead W.H. Sears, 12 years in California since leaving the packed Oklahoma dust farms. His father, in a broken down Okie truck, ordered departures from there. For the first nonces they were and tried to be cotton pickers and were mighty good at it. But one day somebody told Sears to try railroading, which he did, and then he was now, after several years, a young fireman, an engineer, the beautify of the salvation fields of California, making no difference to the stone of his eye, as with glove, frame, throttle, hand he guides the black beast down the star rail. Switches rush up and melt into the rail. Sidings part from it like lips, return like lover arms. My mind is on the brown knees of Carmeliti, the dark spot between her thighs where creation hides its majesty, and all the boys with eager head do rush, suffering, and want the whole, the works, the hair, the seek me, membrane, the lovey, sucky, ducky, work John, the equal due, she never able, and down goes the sun, and it's dark, and they're laying in a grape row. Nobody can see or hear, only the dogs hear. Oh, slowly against the dust of that railroad earth, he presses her little behind down to form a little depression in the earth from the force and weight of his tears, slowly lunging her down through and into the portals of her sweetness. And slowly the blood pounds in his Indian head and comes to arise, and she softly pants with parted brownie lips and with little pear teeth showing and sticking out just far and just so gently among, almost biting, burning in the burn of his own lips. He drives and thrives to pound the grain. The great nod inunis on the wine is springing from the noggin off the ground. Bottles will roll on 3rd Street to the sands of Santa Barbara. He's making it with the would you seek it then, would you, and wouldn't you if you two could. The sweet flesh intermingling, the flowing blood wine dry, husk leaf bepiled earth, with the hard iron passages going o'er. The engines saying, crrr, ooh, ow, and the crossing, it's yea famous, crot, crow, ooh, croot. 2 short, 1 long, 1 short. It's the thing I got to learn, as one time the hoghead was busy telling a joke in the fireman's ear, and we were coming to a crossing, and he yelled at me, go ahead, and made a pull sign with his hand, and I lookied up and grabbed the string and looked out, big engineer. Saw the crossing racing up, and girls in sandals and tight-ass dresses waiting at the flash by our crossing boards of Carnadero, and I let it 2 short pulls, 1 long, 1 short, crude. So now it's purple in the sky. The whole rim, America, falling, spilling over the West Mountains into the eternal and Orient Sea. And there's your sad field, and lovers twine, and the wine is the earth already. And in Watsonville up ahead at the end of the grimy run, among a million others, sits a bottle of Tokay wine, which I'm going to buy to put some of that earth back in my belly. After all this shudder of Ferris knock clock against my soft flesh and bone exaltation. In other words, when work's done, I'm going to have a drink of wine and rest. The Gilroy subdivision, this is. The first run I ever made on the Gilroy subdivision, that night dark and clean. Standing by the engine with my lamp and loot bag, waiting for the big men to make up their minds. Here comes this young kid out of the dark. No railroad man, but obviously a bummer, but on the bum from college or a good family. Or if not, from clean teeth, smile, and no broken down date bag river jack from the bottoms of the world. Night said, this thing going to L.A.? Well, it's going about part of the way to there, about 50 miles to Watsonville, and if you stick on it, they might route you down to San Luis Obispo too, and that's about halfway to LA. Bah, what do I care about halfway to LA? I want to go all the way to LA. What are you, a railroad brake banana? Yeah, I'm a student. What's a student? Well, it's a guy learning and getting. Well, I ain't getting paid. This being my student chain gang run all the way down. Oh, well, I don't like going up and down the same rail. If you ask me, going to sea is the real life. Now that's where I'm headed, or hitchhike to New York. Either way, I wouldn't want to be a railroad man. What are you talking about, man? It's great, and you're moving all the time, and you make a lot of money, and nobody bothers you out there. Never the fucking less. You keep going up and down the same rail, don't you, for Christ's sakes? No, I told him what, how, and where boxcar to get on. Christ's sake, don't hurt yourself. Always remember when you try to go around proving you're a big adventurer of the American night and one of you hop freights like Joe McCree, heroes of old movies. Jesus, you dumb son of a bitch, hang on, angel, with your tightest hand, and don't let your feet drag under that iron round wheel. It'll have less regard for the bone of your leg than it has for this toothpick in my mouthie. Aw, you shit, you shit. You think I'm afraid of a goddamn railroad train? I'm going off to join the goddamn Navy and be on carriers. And there's your iron for you. I'll land my airplane half on iron on water, and crash bang and jet to the moon, too. Good luck to you, guy. Don't fall off. Hang tight, grip wrist. Don't fuck up and tout. And when you gets to LA, give my regards to Lana Turner. The train was starting to leave, and the kid had disappeared up the long black bed and snake-lined red cars. I jumped on the engine with the regular headman, who was going to show me how the run runs, and the fireman and Hoghead. Off we chugged over the crossing, over the Del Monte curve, and where the headman showed me how you hang on with one hand and lean out and crook your arm and grab the train orders off the string. Then out to lick the night, the stars. Never will forget, the fireman wore a black leather jacket and a white Skid Row San Francisco Seaman Embarcadero cap with visor. In the ink of this night, he looked exactly like a revolutionary Bridges Curran Bryson hero of old waterfront smosh flops. I could see him with meaty hand waving a club in forgotten Union publications, rotting in gutters of back alley bars. I could see him with hands deep in pocket going angrily through the uneccentric unworking bums of Third Street, of his rendezvous at the fate of the fish at the waterfront gold blue pier edge where boys sit of afternoons dreaming under clouds on bits of piers with the slap of skeely love waters at their feet. White masts of ships, orange masts of ships with black hulls, and all your Orient trade pouring it under the Golden Gate. This guy, I tell you, was like a sea dog, not a railroad fireman, yet there he sat with his snow-white cap in the grime-black night and rode that fireman's seat like a jockey. Chug, and we were really racing. They were opening her up. Wanted to make good time to get past Gilroy before any orders would fuck them up. So across the unlit tin tight, and with our big pot 3500 engine headlights throwing its feverish big lick tongue over the whirling and in-curling and outflying track, we go swinging and roaring and flying down that line like fucking madman, and the fireman doesn't exactly hold on to his white hat, but he has a hand on fire throttle and keeps close eye on valves and tags and steam bubblers, and outside looks on the rail, and the wind blows his nose back, but God, he bouncing on that seat exactly like a jockey riding a wild horse. Why, we had a hoghead that night, which was my first night, so wild. He had the throttle open full black and kept yanking at it with one heel against the iron scum of the floor, trying to get her up further, and if possible tear the locomotive apart to get more out of her and leave the track and fly up in the night over the prune fields. What a magnificent opening night it was for me to ride a fast run like that with a bunch of speed demons and that magnificent fireman with that unpredestined, impossible, unprecedentable hat, white in the black railroad. And all the time in the conversations they they have. And the visions in this hat I saw of the public hair restaurant on Howard. How I saw that Frisco, California, white and gray of rain fogs, and the back alleys of bottles, breens, derbies, mustachios of beers, oysters, flying seals, crossing hills, bleak bay windows. I diddle for old churches with handouts for sea dogs barkling and snarling in avenues of lost opportunity time. Ah, loved it all. And the first night, the finest night, the blood. Railroading gets in your blood. The old hoghead is yelling at me as he bounces up and down in his seat, and with the wind blows his striped cap visor back, and the engine like a huge beast is lurching side to side 70 miles per hour, breaking all rule book rules. Some. We're crashing through the night, and out there Carmeliti is coming. Jose's making her electricities mix and interrun with his, and the whole earth charged with juices turns up the oregano to the flower, the unfoldment, the stars bend to it. The whole world's coming as the big engine booms and balls by with the madmen of the white-capped California in there flossing. And wow, there's just no end to all this wine.